Hello, beautiful human being, and welcome to the Ryan Magic Show. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the meaning of life, the purpose of life, and how the universe has designed the human experience to enable our soul's journey through life as a human. And there's very specific purpose behind this. It's to help you have as much insight and awareness as possible so that you can be delicate to yourself and empowered with awareness while you're going through this journey that isn't as simple as the average human being going through life. If you're in this spiritual journey, the journey is different. And I'm just going to share what my experience has been over the last, let's say, 7 years of being on a spiritual awakening, so to speak, and discuss the kind of vulnerable insights that I've had through my own personal journey to support you on yours. So it's going to be a bit of an interesting conversation. Most of what I'm going to share is just my personal opinion based on what I've experienced and witnessed and understood and interpreted also through different perspectives that I've had reflected to me at different stages of my journey. So anyway, before we get into this episode, if you're yet to connect with me more personally, I'd love an email from you. You can email me at ryan@ryanmagic.com or send me a message on Instagram. My handle is @TheRyanMagic. I would love to have a connection through this channel more so than just these episodes. And if something touches you throughout the episode personally, I would love to hear about it. If you shoot me a message, that'll be really fulfilling for me. So thank you. In terms of working together, what do I do to put value out there to the world? My main offer is the Art of Courage workshop, which is a super deep dive integrative experience that explores how to thrive across all layers of our personal experience, across our spiritual journey, our emotional healing journey, and our material success journey, purpose, financial abundance, time abundance. How do they all fit together? And would love to support you in that. And if you're really wanting to level up, I do one-to-one coaching as well. Anyway, let's get into the episode. So about 6 years ago, I had a huge breakdown in my life where everything that I thought was the scoreboard of how to approach my best life was kind of ripped out from under me when I had achieved most of what I perceived was valuable and what I was told was valuable, only to feel worse than I'd felt before, more lonely, unfulfilled. And I was very confused at that point. And so that led me on the last 6-7 year journey of deepening my relationship with spirituality. I would say not deepening, I'd say opening my relationship with spirituality. Because before that, I had a very clear understanding of what life was about, which was all about material success, all about giving my best, thriving, succeeding, being on purpose, and ticking boxes of success, succeeding in donating over $100,000 to charity, succeeding in working with over 1,000 premium clients to change their lives who were coaches so they could change more lives, succeeding by having a beautiful partner and who's also into personal growth, succeeding by having a bigger business and team, and succeeding by becoming a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur, succeeding by buying my dream car, succeeding by moving into a designer house, succeeding by traveling the world and adventuring and doing my business stuff, running retreats around the world in Monte Carlo and Switzerland and Hawaii and Las Vegas, and putting these retreats on around the world and rocking up and living a life that pretty much fulfilled my vision board of what looked awesome. And I really did work very hard for that experience. I hustled a lot, 100-hour weeks. I also ticked the box of health, get really strong. I was bench pressing 140 kilos. I was deadlifting 210 kilos. I had a six pack. I was ticking all these external vanity aspects of life, and even some more intrinsically celebrated aspects of life, like giving money to charity, some more socially driven aspects to life. But they were very, very, I was approaching that whole journey in a way that was not leaving me feel very fulfilled in my life. So there was something that was wrong. And so I'm going to explain the way that I perceive the purpose of being a human being and our soul's journey through this human experience. The way that I currently perceive it is that as a soul, we come into the manifest form from being unmanifest, stored potential energy that is unmanifest. It's just sitting there as infinite potential. This is what Joe Dispenza calls the quantum realm. It's also known as string theory, where apparently an electron, until it is observed, doesn't exist. It's just sitting there in the quantum field, and then once it's observed, boom, it's there. But before it's observed, it's not there. And this is the scientific, the quantum physics perspective on the spiritual theory of the fact that we have a unified field of consciousness known as oneness, through which everything in our human experience, our material world, has become manifest, but it originated from the unmanifest realm of infinite stored potential. Potential, meaning it hasn't yet been realized. It's just stored potential. And so we're stored potential, and we come into this human experience to achieve an experience, well, for two reasons. One reason is to experience, because if as oneness we are stored potential, it means we are nothing and everything at the same time. And what that essentially means is that we are love, we are success, we are abundance, we are every single stored potential, every variable of possibility, we are at the same time. So we're everything, literally everything. Happiness, sadness, we're good, we're bad, we're up, we're down. We are stored potential. We're manifest, unmanifest, every single thing at the same time. And this is essentially what in astronomy is called singularity. It's like if you go into a black hole and you're traveling through a black hole past a time horizon, something splits from whatever goes into the black hole goes from being everything, and then as it goes in, goes past the time horizon, it splits from being an object into, it then goes into a point of singularity. And so it dissolves from complexity and separation and individuality into singularity, just becomes oneness. And then when something comes out of a black hole, it gets put back together and then turns back into separation and manifest form. So a black hole is like this scientific metaphor for the process of manifestation, the process of creation. So essentially, we come here because we're everything and nothing at the same time. The universe wants to experience itself in different flavors, in different unique combinations. So if we're everything and nothing, we're love, but we don't know oneness doesn't know what it necessarily feels like to experience love, because it doesn't know how to experience it as an isolated experience, because it's everything at the same time. So it wants to experience all the different flavors of itself. And the only way it can experience them is by the contrast of those different aspects of the consciousness of itself being separated from the oneness. Then it can experience it in a more of an isolated way. So for us as humans, we can experience what it feels like to be consumed with sadness, whereas oneness is sad, but there is no separation in oneness. So it's experiencing happiness, sadness, fun, joy, play, anger, grief, disgust, nostalgia, all these different things at the exact same time. So the universe, stored potential, infinite consciousness, wants to know what it feels like to feel sad, wants to know what it feels like to feel happy, wants to know what it feels like to be a human being, to have limitations. And so it's said in spiritual theory that the purpose of, the most powerful energy in the whole universe is the energy of ignorance. That is the most powerful force of the universe, is ignorance. And what that means is the fact that we are the elements that come from oneness. So we are oneness. And we're just manifested we've come into the manifest form and separated from the oneness, but we are the ingredients of oneness. This is what I've experienced whenever I've done plant medicine, especially the first 5 or so journeys over the last 6-7 years. The first bunch of journeys that I did, I would see the fractals of creative material, the atoms, the makeup of all the different parts. And I could see how we were all made from the same matter. I was made from the same matter as a rock. And this is true. The same elements that make up space and the stars are the same elements. I'm pretty sure it's carbon, oxygen, I can't remember the rest. Hydrogen make up the same. We're made up from the same things that the stars are made up of. We are literally made up of the same matter. On an atomic level, that idea that a table is mainly space and you touch it and it's physical and it's an illusion. We're made up from the same atoms, aka we've come from source energy and we've manifested into a physical form. And the universe can only, stored infinite potential can only really experience the different flavors of itself, because it is everything, by separating different unique elements of itself into different forms. So the formless, oneness, the absolute, the divine, the subatomic world, the quantum realm, the infinite field, however it wants to be referred to, becomes form, becomes manifest. We are manifest. We are an example of the universe wanting to experience a different flavor of itself, separate to the oneness, so it can experience and have a unique, isolated, separated experience and feel what it feels like to be a different flavor of itself. Okay. So that, because you could argue and think, well, if the universe and stored infinite potential is everything, why would it want to become separate? Because so it can have that experience of feeling isolated aspects of itself, separated aspects of itself. But the funny thing about it is that the most powerful force of the universe is ignorance, because we need to be convinced that we're not oneness in order to be able to forget the truth of what we are, so that we can have that isolated experience. Because if we knew we were completely infinite and one, then we wouldn't know what it feels like just to be sad in that moment, because we'd be feeling everything. So we wouldn't be feeling sadness. Okay. So to feel sad, we need to forget that we're also happy, that we're also everything else. And that creates a unique experience that oneness can't itself create. And so metaphorically in spiritual theory, the way this is referred to is using the ocean as a metaphor of the infinite field, and a wave being a metaphor for form or a manifest creation. So the non-manifest is the stored potential, and then which is the ocean, and then a wave comes up and forms out of that stored infinite potential. So, in summary, one of the purposes of this human experience as a soul on this soul journey is to experience, to have unique experiences. Now, there are some contradictions here, not contradictions, but there are some opposing forces and opposing intentions weaving into the same experience, the same situation here as a human being. On the same token, there's a process of forgetting that ignorance, that powerful force that allows us to have a separate experience, so we can experience something separate from oneness. But then simultaneously to that, as much as a human being, we're on this journey of forgetting ourselves, we then manifest into this world on our soul journey. I see it as there's two main phases of this soul journey. One of the phases is the forgetting or ignorance phase. And the second phase, the second journey that we go through, or the second direction we move in as a soul on this soul journey, is awareness and remembering. So first we forget our oneness. We come into this soul as this baby, come into this human form as this baby, and we start forgetting where we're connected in our mother's womb. We're connected where we are still half in the realm of infinite potential as an energy, but then we're becoming more and more manifest. And then we become most separate physically as we separate from our mother's umbilical cord, and we are now a separate individual, unique human. Boom, we're here. And through the process of our ego forming, we become more and more separate. We forget more and more of what we are, the truth of the fact that we are the unmanifest. In manifest form, we forget that, and we forget and forget and forget. We become more and more separate, more and more tangible in our thinking, in our approach to life. We become more and more relative, or more and more gross, more and more relative, more and more physical, more and more matter. We become more and more attached to our separate identity as a human being. And so I see that first journey, that forgetting, that ignorance stage, as moving towards a point of being the most separate we could possibly be. And I call that the intolerable pain of separation. When we feel like we continue to potentially achieve more, but we forget so much of the truth of what we are. We have so much ignorance that accumulates for us to reach this precipice point of forgetting, where we reach this painful point of separation, where we're so individual, we're so connected to our identity as a human being. Our ego is so prominent and so strong and so fixed and so rigid and so developed that we hit this point where the pain of separation is so intense that we hit a rock bottom moment in life. And that pain, Eckhart Tolle speaks a lot about this, that pain is what pushes people to awaken. And when we hit that intolerable point of pain of separation, that point of forgetting that is so pronounced, where we go, holy crap, we awaken from a coma of living in ignorance and go, there's got to be something else to this experience. There's got to be something else to this experience. It can't just be succeeding, trying to prove ourselves to our parents. It can't just be this material world. There's got to be something else, because this grief, this sadness, this pain, this hardship, this situation I'm currently in, it doesn't make sense fully. Thus, I'm going to start searching for something more. And that, in my opinion, this is just my perspective, my analysis on this human experience through all the pain and hardship and journey that I've been on, is that is a spiritual awakening. Okay? That is when the dominant theme of someone's life goes from being separation and ignorance and forgetting to togetherness, remembering, and awareness. This is when we start to wake up. We start to wake up. And when we begin this second journey, the purpose, the macro purpose of our life switches from being, I'm going to try and lead someone more and more to the point of separation. Now the universe starts going, well, I'm going to lead this person more and more to to the point of togetherness. I'm going to walk this person home, and I'll explain how in a moment, but I really want to make sure that this theory is making sense and landing. So we come from the unmanifest form as stored potential, the infinite field of consciousness. And then bloop, we just come in here. Our soul is on the journey of forgetting. It's moving away from the unmanifest and into manifest form. And then the universe conspires to create a unique experience as a human being that is further and further away from the truth of what it is, where our fixed human identity, which leverages the most powerful force in the universe, ignorance, to convince us that we're actually separate. We're actually a individual that's disconnected, and convinces us of that through our unique humanity. That is the human phase, that first phase. The being of the human being phase is the second one. And so we're in this human stage. We're in our animal. We are connected to survival. We're driven by fear. We're trying to accumulate and succeed and thrive and become better and more accomplished and better than other people. We go on this quest to try to become better than, separate from, in other words. Because if you're better, because on an unmanifest level, on the level of isness, on the level of the quantum realm, there's no better or worse. It's just all different flavors of experience. There's no better or worse. It's not like a homeless person from the eyes of the unmanifest is worse than a successful banker. And it's not like someone that knows about meditation is better than someone that doesn't. There's no value. That is a made-up human construct. It's something that is implanted into our psychology to create this perception of separation, to create this unique experience, this experiment, this opportunity to feel what it feels like to be different, to have isolated experiences of different fragments of the stored potential of what we are. And that is fragmentation. That is where different aspects of our build-up are fragmented and split off and separated so that we can feel the isolated experience of what it feels like to be different parts of the whole. So we go from being in the whole, like WHOLE, to becoming separate from the whole, at least perceptively. And that is that first half of our experience. And so the universe attempts to have us become more egoic, build that ego. And it's part of the play, part of the movie, part of the story, part of the journey that a soul goes on. Is cool, you've gone from being unmanifest and now you're in ignorance. And we're going to keep teaching you how painful it is to separate, so that simultaneously to coming here for this experience, which is one of the purposes of life. The second, the two E's of a soul journey, experience, but also evolution. And that evolution looks like moving along the soul journey. It's not better to be on the second half of our experience and waking up. That's not better than separating and being ignorant. Being ignorant is not worse. It's part of the experience. However, the reason I'm recording this video is for those of you that are around that point of awakening or on that point of awakening, but don't conceptually understand it. I personally feel that the conceptual understanding for me helps me delineate the difference in purpose between phase one and phase two, and therefore start to accept the new journey that I'm on in phase two. Because phase one journey and phase two journey are very different. And I feel that a big part of phase two is letting go of phase one. And hopefully this video, this podcast episode, if you're not watching the YouTube video, hopefully this podcast episode supports you to understand where your soul is at on the journey, so that hopefully you can become a little bit more at peace with where you are in your journey. Again, it's not better or worse than anyone else's, but it's very different. It's very different. So in phase one, when we're in the journey of ignorance, it is easier to make decisions that promote material success, because materiality, the more gross something is, like the more manifest it is, the more separate it is, the more tangible it is, the more material it is, the more egoic it is, the more separate it is. And the more material and egoic we become, the more pain we experience in our consciousness. And the reason that's the case is because if someone is forgetting the truth of what they are, it's a scary place. It's a scary place, because on an individual level, when everything's going well and the ego is in the inflated part of its polarity, it feels great. I'm so good. I'm like, even though we're not present fully with the experience, we're more reactive to the experience because we can't have presence when we're dominated in ego consciousness. So we're not getting to really pull the fullness from the experience and extract the juice from the experience. We're still riding a high. It's not in the highs that spiritual awakenings happen, or there is a perceived problem in a scenario. It's in the low that gets magnetized through the high. There is no maintaining the high. That's why when someone does drugs, they have withdrawals. That's why you can't just hold the high. That's why every celebrity, you look at NFL players, 78% of NFL players end up bankrupt. 80%, up to 80% of all elite sports athletes end up divorced because they struggle with mental health. Because what happens is, to be riding the consciousness where you perceive that you're better than, you're separating yourself more and more. And the felt experience of that is one of suffering, especially when the pendulum swings from high to low, which it inevitably does in equal amounts. So someone's riding a high, and I'll use myself as an example here. When I had all these things and I'd risen above and I was leading 25 full-time staff, I was the best. I was the top. I was the leader. When I looked at, and in the industry in Australia, and I was the leading person helping life coaches grow their business, I was the best. So as much as I was above everyone and I succeeded, I won at the game that I was playing, I was also put myself in this whole other category where I was separate to everyone else. I wasn't able to connect with people. I wasn't actually better. I just perceived myself as better, and I perceived other people as worse. And so even though I was doing a great job in the game that I was taught to play and told to play, taught by my dad, taught by my primary school sports teams, private school I got a scholarship to, winning is good. There's a scoreboard. And the better you do on that scoreboard academically, like I got a pretty solid enter score. I did well academically. And I felt better than when I did, and I felt worse than when I didn't. If I got a low test score, I felt worse than. Got a high test score, I felt better than. If I had a good performance when I played football, I felt better than. If I had a bad performance, I felt worse than. Okay. So my human experience was conditional on being above average, better than, which is an experience that leads to a feeling of separation. And that's exactly what my experience was like as I thrived more and more. And I ticked the boxes that I was taught to tick by society more and more. When I was at the top of my game, the absolute peak, where I had the most material possessions and the most money coming in, and I was accomplishing the most, was when I felt the most lonely. I felt the most separate, and I didn't understand it. I identified with feeling lonely at the time. I felt very lonely. I felt very frustrated and misunderstood, and I felt like my material world, because I was feeling innately better than and attempting to be better than, that was a felt experience for the people around me. I wasn't present with them and valuing their soul, their uniqueness equally to myself. And that's a felt experience. When people are therefore around me, the energy that I was projecting out was one of, I'm better than you. And so then when people were around me, they felt worse than just by being in my presence. That's it. And you could say some people felt inspired. Sure, I inspired people because they were hoping that I was a ticket in their life to them also being better than. And so I was helping and aiding and supporting people to hit a point of the intolerable pain of separation and have an awakening in their own life. You could argue that, but I wasn't necessarily helping people feel whole and more connected to fulfillment, because I was only in my first phase of my soul experience. I was in the phase of forgetting the truth of what I was. And that's why it felt so painful to be the more materially successful that I became, because it was based in fear, because I didn't innately feel unconditionally lovable for who I am and what I was, because of that ignorance, because of that forgetting of the truth of my presence and what I actually was, because I forgot that, it caused a huge amount of internal pain, because I legitimately was I was becoming more and more separate. I was trying to separate myself more and more without even realizing that was my primary aim. I wanted to become the best of all time at everything. I wanted to be the best speaker of all time, the most successful. I wanted to have a net worth of $10 billion. And I was so driven to be different, to be separate, which is crazy when I look back. Like, why would I want to be separate from people? Right? But in that first phase of life, which you may be or you may not be, and it's not a competition, that's not better than being in phase 2 of life. It's really not. And by the way, to try to explain all this theory to someone that's in phase 1, their consciousness doesn't have the hearing capacity to even take on board that aspect of someone's consciousness. I call that heart consciousness that's dominant in phase 2, and head consciousness that's dominant in phase 1. When someone's in their head consciousness, they're stuck in head hypnosis. What Eckhart would call hypnosis, what Tara Brach would call trance, and what Carl Jung would call living below the line. And a lot of spiritual teachers would say being unconscious, or in ego-dominated consciousness. So to try to speak to someone who's in that ignorance, their mind doesn't even want to wake up to this. In fact, their survival consciousness, their survival brain is attached to staying in that because it wants to stay alive. And it sees awakening to the truth of reality as something which is essentially letting go, but it's letting go of it. It doesn't want to be let go of. It doesn't want to be transcended. It doesn't want to be left behind. It doesn't want to be killed. An ego death. The ego doesn't want to have a death, doesn't want to die. It's driven by survival. It's driven by staying alive. And it perceives that awakening is a huge threat to that. And this is why we can be very, very scared in the first phase of reality, but we would never admit that when we're in that first phase of the soul's journey. We would never admit that we're afraid, because to do that is threatening and exposing the vulnerability and the face that ego is trying to save. It's trying to save face. Okay. So that's the first experience of life. And what's going to happen is you're able to sacrifice your alignment. You're able to, because you're in ignorance. It's easy. It's not easy, but you have the capacity in that phase to take action from a place of fear, to have blind spots that dominate your decision making. So for me, I burnt myself out. I can't do that now. I literally can't burn myself out because I care about myself and love myself too much. I have too much awareness for that. If my energy is being depleted too much, I'll rest and I'll take space to rejuvenate. Whereas in the past, because I was so in ignorance, even though I was getting tired, I didn't even know I was tired lots of the time. So I would just have energy drinks or whatever I had to do to try and mask the tiredness, because I was so desperately attached. When we're afraid and we're dominated by fear consciousness, we're in that first phase of life where ignorance is the dominant theme. I'm just going to pause for a second right here, because I literally noticing as I'm talking about this, that my energy is actually starting to get a little bit depleted. So I'm going to pause on this, and I'm going to have a little break, and then I'm going to come back and do the second half. And I may or may not split this into a separate episode. All right, I'm back. I just went outside and did a little bit of grounding, went for a nice little walk. Now I'm feeling super re-energized, which is great. So as I was just saying before, the way in which the universe treats our life in phase one, it's much easier to move towards separation, to become more material, because with ignorance, we ignore the inherent alignment of our soul, our soul's voice, our heart's whispers, our gut feeling. We ignore that more. Even though it's there still in phase one, we don't have the attunement or hearing potential to pick up on it. So again, what that looked like with me in business was I would work so hard and exhaust myself because I was so attached to becoming more and more successful, because I was living under the illusion that that was the game of life. And my fear consciousness, because the effect of fear is attachment. The effect of fear is attachment. If I'm afraid that who I am is not enough, I become attached to trying to meet that man or meet that woman, because without it, I'm not enough. And so I'm scared. What if I'm not good enough? If I'm not good enough, people won't like me. So I need to get that thing to complete me, because I'm already incomplete. And that can only be believed in a state of ignorance, in a state of separation. Because if you're in a state of connectedness, like deep connection with the truth of what you are, you already feel whole. And you carry that wholeness into whatever pursuit you decide to do, or experience you decide to create, or purpose you decide to have, or relationship you decide to enter. But so that attachment, any attachment, only comes from fear, the fear of not being enough. So if you're desperately, obsessively attached to trying to become successful, that's because you're perceiving that without the success, your life is worse. You're in lack consciousness before you even began, trying to complete yourself. And that's where attachment comes in. Attachment can only come in when we're in ignorance, when we're forgotten the truth of what we are. And that is what happens in that first phase of our soul journey. First phase of our soul journey is completely dominated by ignorance. And so we live with attachment, so much attachment, and a huge fear of letting go. And a huge fear of letting go. So it's in those stages that we can actually accumulate against our own alignment material success in a lot of cases. This is why this celebrity mental health pandemic is a thing, because most celebrities have these chronic drug addictions, mental health problems. They go through so much trouble. You just look at the list. I actually researched it recently, and there's pretty much everyone was on it. Matthew McConaughey, Brad Pitt, Angelina Jolie, Oprah had gone through it. Bradley Cooper had gone through it. Lady Gaga had gone through it. It's like, who hasn't gone through it? All of them. Because when you reach that point of, through ignorance, continuously choosing to desperately and obsessively meet your attachment to becoming a somebody because you don't feel like you're good enough for who you are, then you get it and you still don't feel good. You actually feel worse. And that's that intolerable pain of separation. Now, at that intolerable pain of separation, without awareness, and I will very much highlight this very strongly, without awareness, when people hit that intolerable pain of separation and they get stuck in that feeling of that pain of separation, but don't have awareness of what's happening, they haven't woken up yet, but they're still in that deep, dark, rock bottom feeling in their life, like a Robin Williams. What's the result? The result can be end of life. I don't want to be here anymore. I can't handle this pain anymore. This pain of separation. I've got everything and I still feel terrible. I don't want to be here anymore. And without a way of having awareness, without the awareness, there can just be the need to knee-jerk react and escape through suicide. That is a real thing. And I strongly stipulated without awareness. Every single one of you that are listening to this, when you hit this point, or if you hit this point, if you haven't yet already, which you probably have, with awareness, you understand I'm feeling pain because I'm feeling separate. And there's a way then to approach life that promotes reconnection, that promotes awareness, that promotes remembering. And that will help you transcend the suffering and move into a state of fulfillment, a state of completeness, fullness, fulfillment, filled. I'm full. I feel full in who I am. And that's not a permanent state. This isn't as linear as I've depicted it so far. I'm just doing it to help delineate between the two macro themes, but it's very, very nuanced and it's very complex, more complex than I can fully comprehend. This is my attempt at capturing this phenomenon, this journey that we have as a human being. It's an attempt, but there's a lot of factors that I wouldn't be speaking to here, I'm sure, because it's very complex. It's not as linear as you're in ignorance, now you're in awareness. Because when you're in ignorance, there are moments of awareness. And when you're in the theme of that second phase of awareness, there are moments of ignorance, like big moments of ignorance. But the further along the journey that one is in phase one, the more ignorant they are. And the further along someone is in phase two, the more aware they are. The earlier someone is in the phase of ignorance, the more aware they are. And the earlier someone is in the phase of awareness, the more ignorant they are. So it's, and that's just how it is. So phase one, the point of me sharing all of this is that I want you to know that it is normal to actually be able to sacrifice your alignment in order to meet attachments. You might find that you actually materially thrived more in phase one than what you're currently doing at the start of phase two. Because when you enter that stage of waking up, the universe's goal for you is a much more special gift. The gift of phase one, I wrote a quote yesterday, actually, something along the lines of material, of vanity. Those that have vanity haven't been blessed. No, those that have material success aren't blessed. People aren't given material success as a blessing. They're given it as a lesson. That was something like that. And essentially the point of that is that when someone has a lot of material success and they're still in phase one, they're not given that material success as like a big blessing because their life is so good and Oprah's life is way better than your life. And if you just had that money, life would be so different. It's not a blessing. That's not what you think it won't give you what society tells you it will. It's going to give you a lesson. And the lesson is that separation is painful. Feeling separate has pain attached to it. And again, we can ride the ups and downs of separation. We're in that state of ego. There are highs and there are lows. There is inflation where I'm so good, and there's deflation, whereas I suck and I'm worse. And there's I am better than human. I'm bigger, better than other people. And that's inflation. And there's I'm less than human. I'm superhuman, inflation. I'm less than human, deflation. And they're both two sides of the same coin. They're both a experience of being in that fear dominant consciousness, that ignorance, that forgetting phase of life. And so once we enter phase 2, the universe changes its goal of you. The goal is no longer to move you to that intolerable pain of separation. The goal is now to move you into the unconditional fulfillment of oneness, and moving you back to how it feels to carry that awareness and that presence and that beautiful state of unconditional love that comes with reconnecting more to oneness. So they're both moving in the same direction, phase 1 and phase 2. But phase 1 is just moving you down to the intolerable pain of separation. And then phase 2 is moving you up, so to speak, closer to oneness. And so in phase 2, the universe, with awareness, it's going to be more difficult to dishonor your alignment and dishonor love, because the universe now, with your awareness, you've given consent without being aware of it, just through being in this second phase, you've given the universe consent to support your awakening. And to support your awakening, the universe isn't playing by the rule book and scoreboard of material success. The universe couldn't care less what material success you have. The universe couldn't care less whether you finally meet your man or your woman and that you're deeply attached to. The universe will give you the beauty of what it feels like to connect back to oneness. And that is a very different game. And that's why I'm doing this video, because I want you to understand, if you have moved to phase 2, that you're on a different playing field now, where the rules are different, where the universe conspires to support you in a different way. And when I went to phase 2, but I was still kind of confused on what the rules were, I was constantly feeling disappointed when I would forget again and re-enter the consciousness of fear, attachment, materialism, that now with awareness, I'm not able to play that same game that I used to play as well as I used to play it. I could not beat the previous version of me at being the previous version of me, because that guy didn't have awareness. That version of me was so attached to becoming successful that I would sacrifice everything for it, because everything was on the line. My whole self-worth was on the line in the past. And so health, I don't care about my health. Like, I will do whatever it takes. I will lose as much sleep as I need to. I will fire as many people as I need to from my business and my life. I am here to get to the end of my life and know that I gave every last breath to become the best version of myself that I could humanly possibly be. I could become the most successful person that I could ever be, because I want to give my best. I don't want to die with regrets. I want to win at the game of life. I want to get to the end of my life and I will have given my best, and I will have died the most accomplished and successful person I could have possibly been. And I was not prepared to do anything else. And that's not an easy game to play. That takes sacrifice. That takes blood, sweat, and tears. That takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of tackling fears. That takes a lot of hard work. That's not easy, but also lacks a lot of reward, because the gifts of that feeling are very temporary. It's a temporary feeling of inflation, followed by an inevitable and consistent feeling of deflation. Just deflation, inflation, better than, worse than, better than, worse than, better than, worse than. But then when I entered phase 2 and I experienced what it felt like to feel whole in glimpses, in moments, and wow, went, whoa, this is more grounded than I've ever felt in my entire life. It doesn't matter how much success I had in the past. I was always deeply insecure. I was always feeling better than, worse than, comparing myself with others, attempting to control people's image of me, wanting to look good, constantly in the anxiety that comes with that. Even if I didn't feel deeply weak in my anxiety all the time, I was deeply determined to be better than and fulfill those needs and attachments. So I didn't feel weak necessarily, but I was never in a state of contentment. I never actually felt conditional. I never had true confidence. It was always fake confidence. It was always based on my external success, which was constantly changing. And my measuring stick was always increasing. Like the rules that I gave myself was always escalating in terms of the level of success I expected of myself. So I'd hit a goal. Oh, I did $1 million in my business. Cool. 2's good. Let's do 2. 5's good. Let's do 5. Now I want to do 300. And so it didn't matter what I achieved. The ego would constantly find new rules for the inflated attachment of what I needed to achieve to still feel worthy. So my self-worth was always on the line. And then I had little glimpses in phase 2 of, whoa, I can be grounded now. And I actually chose courageously to let go of my vehicles of conditional self-worth. I shut my business down so that I had to learn to love myself without that. To learn to be okay without any of these accolades. Can I just feel solid being Ryan Madges, just who I am as a person? Can I be worthy of love just for being me? Is that possible? Let's see. And I went on that journey. And so there were lots of times where I had so much grief and fear that would arise of, oh my gosh, I've made a big mistake and I've lost all this success and now I'm a loser and I'm a nobody and I'm failing so hard at the old game because I was no longer playing that game. I chose to play a new game. But that identity, that ego attachment still resided in my consciousness. And without understanding what this new landscape looked like, it left me constantly going back into the old consciousness and feeling that deep pain and going back into that regret. Oh my gosh, I've made a big mistake here. I let go of my business. What an idiot. Now I'm losing. Look at the people that I used to compete against. Look where they are now. Look how successful they are. And I'm just a loser that's decided to quit because I'm weak. These are the sort of stories that would come up for me because I was 1 foot in awareness and 1 foot in ignorance. And so I was really struggling to find some stability in either of the directions. And so I just have an intuitive feeling that if you're listening to this, there's a good chance that you may also find yourself backpedaling from awareness to ignorance, from remembering to forgetting. And the reason why that's the case is because our whole world is dominated by people that are in phase 1. There's a lot more people in phase 1 than phase 2. So there's a lot less acceptance and understanding and awareness of what it looks like to be in phase 1. And the people that are more visible in the world are usually in phase 1. I misspoke a moment ago. There's a lot more people in phase 1 than there are in phase 2. And so the people in phase 1, in the ignorance, in the material pursuit, there's a lot more people that are in fear consciousness versus those that are in love consciousness. And so if you're in phase 2, you're now playing a different game to what most other people are playing. It's very easy to then get pulled back into that old way of measuring, that old scoreboard. Literally just having a scoreboard in itself is phase 1 consciousness, is the journey of ignorance, is fear consciousness, is very physically orientated, materially orientated. And so what happens is, and this is where we get to some of the juice of this podcast, I just want to pause for a moment and I want to tune back into what it can look like to be in phase 1, because to reach that intolerable pain of separation, I want to give some examples of what that can look like. It definitely can look like achieving everything that you thought was going to make you eternally happy and make your life so amazing, and then realizing, didn't make my life better at all. That can be the intolerable pain of separation, because you've got there, you got to that point, you did it, like I did it, and I feel like crap. But it can also come from struggling to succeed and break through it all. It can come from just, I'm so sick of trying to make it and just failing. I'm so tired of trying to prove myself. Who am I even doing this for? I've lost sight of what my initial objective was. I'm just trying to prove myself. I'm just trying to make it. I'm just playing this game. Why am I even playing this game? So it can come from sheer tiredness and adrenal fatigue. It might be being in the corporate system for ages and working and working and working. But a lot of the time it comes from some kind of like a big externally painful manifestation of ignorance. So from continually ignoring your inner knowing because you were disconnected from it, some kind of addiction, affliction, or allergy has presented itself. Some kind of external manifestation has presented itself, and now you're listening. You got cancer now. It's time to actually wake up and do something differently. And I've spoken to many, many people whose spiritual awakening came off the back end of actually getting cancer. It could also come from adrenal fatigue. It could also come from a big marriage breakdown. It could, like a divorce, it could come from finding out that your partner was cheating on you. It could come from getting fired from your job. It could come from your business getting shut down. Like I chose to shut down my business. It wasn't crushing it at the point I chose to shut it down. I also manifested some big physical challenges in the business. I manifested an executive that stole a ton of money from our business and sabotaged it from the inside out. And if you are in ignorance and you're not seeing things for an extended period of time, problems get buried, because usually these material pursuits that we have in phase one consciousness, they come with a huge amount of attachment, like I spoke to earlier. And when we're deeply attached to something, we kind of ignore some of the signs. You know, the spiritual wisdom, different thought leaders will often say, starts as a whisper, getting that invitation to change, like to know that the relationship's not working. Then it becomes like a stern piece of feedback. And then if you don't listen enough, the universe will bring out the baseball bat, club you in the head with it. And there'll be serious problems. Like, yeah, now you have cancer. Yeah, now your whole business is gone. Yeah, now this person's cheated on you. Because there's been signs and it's been evidence that it's not working for a long period of time, but it's been ignored and ignored and ignored and ignored. And now you're listening because I forced you to listen, right? So that's a little bit about what it looks like at the end of phase one. And then we're dealing with the pain of that loss, but also the opportunity to make a big shift in life, and opportunities to start to wake up, to start to prioritize the aspects of your life that actually enrich your experience, the aspects of life that actually enrich your experience. And all of these aspects are usually more subtle, basic, simple things. That's why my first podcast episode I did back after being in hiatus for a little while was embracing normalcy, because the simplicity is very enriching and fulfilling in life if you can find the presence. You can find the presence. So phase two, what the universe starts to do now is it changes the scoreboard from, okay, with ignorance, you can go pursue and achieve and attach to and obsess about all these different things, which is going to lead you closer and closer to a breakdown, a rock bottom moment where you're at the lowest of lows. But then in phase two, the universe has a whole other rule book that it starts to determine what and have you live your life by. That rule book looks like alchemy. That rule book looks like presenting everything, drip feeding all the challenges, all the misperceptions you have, the judgments that you hold from different aspects of life. In other words, where you're not seeing unconditional love in your life, the universe is going to shove that back in your face. You're not seeing beauty in your relationship? Okay, we're not going to improve it then. We're not going to give you the things that you're attached to in your relationship until you learn to love what you have right now. We're not going to give you a partner until you learn to love being single. We're not going to give you You think your business sucks or your job's crap and you need to get in this business and only then's your life going to be good? We're going to block your business success. And it's not like with the same level of malice that's in the tonality I was acting as the universe with then. It's just, I love you so much that I'm going to have to withhold what you're attached to, because I really want to teach you how to love yourself without that attachment. I want to teach you to love yourself without that partner, teach you to love yourself without that business success. I want to teach you to love yourself just for who you are right now. And that's what the universe gives as a gift. And so if we come back to the start of this video, two purposes of manifesting and coming back onto this planet as a human being, one is to experience different things, to be separate. That's part of it. And to experience all these different aspects in life, have a beautiful experience, to be present with all these different amazing flavors of life. And the second goal is evolution. And that's what alchemy is. Alchemy is evolution. Evolution happens internally and externally. The universe wants you to create externally, but the universe also wants you to alchemize internally. Both are evolution. When you have some kind of massive attachment in your life and you let go of that attachment by learning to love what is, the universe is helping you evolve and see life with more love, more unconditional love. The universe is supporting you. When you have a bunch of emotional pain from your past that you've suppressed, and the universe brings experiences very intelligently into your life for you to relive the trauma from your upbringing, the trauma from and the karma from phase one of your journey. When the universe brings an experience that mirrors that from your earlier life, it's doing so to help you alchemize it, so that that charge isn't causing you to live in fear from the past. It's actually then the experience comes back up so you can feel it, to heal it, and alchemize that emotional resistance that resides in your body so that you can move forward with more unconditional love and become more love consciousness and less fear consciousness, more heart consciousness and less head consciousness. The universe is supporting you to wake up. The universe is just going to drip feed you experience after experience after experience, challenge after challenge after challenge, next step after next step after next step on your purpose, so you can create more, so that you can start to become more and more living in unconditional love, where you feel less fear. Yeah, to feel less fear, you need to be able to fear less outside of you in the world externally and evolve externally, and also to fear less made up stuff internally. And so the universe gives you the opportunity to alchemize judgments, attachments, stories, limiting beliefs, and emotional trauma, so that you can have the opportunity to see life with more love. And that's what the second phase looks like. So if you're playing phase number one, like if I see a woman walk down the street that's caked in makeup, lip fillers, and she works out massively, she's been getting that box gap at the gym, getting those glutes on, so she's got a Kim Kardashian kind of look. I look at that and I see the unhealthiness of all those synthetic products on her. I see the unhealthiness of going and working so hard in the gym, destroying herself just to be able to, in an imbalanced way, get a big booty. That's that whole process, that whole attempt at externally becoming more lovable is so unhealthy. And that person could only do that in ignorance. When that person steps into awareness, there's going to be a different perspective of beauty. And it's not going to be the manufactured version of like a Kim Kardashian. It's going to be more of an organic version of a natural, healthy human that embraces a wholesome lifestyle. And what beauty looks like is also an external manifestation, but it's very heavily influenced by the inner state, the inner state of being that is just so charismatically beautiful for the presence that that person's able to admit, and the embodiment of the divine mother, the embodiment of the divine goddess, the feminine through the eyes of love, imprinted out in human form. Such a different representation as an example. Same thing if we see a businessman that's on the phone walking down the street, just frustrated in energy, working so hard, 4 coffees a day, getting up super early, pumping out gyms so that that person looks good physically to try to, like, you know, be more winning at life, and not getting enough sleep, not getting enough rest, choosing to pursue business opportunities and commercial opportunities that are purely that, to attempt to increase one's financial situation, propagating systems in the world that actually continue to perpetuate fear consciousness through the world. One can only do that from ignorance. And so when we enter phase 2, and that ignorance kind of gets liberated through awareness, that person is going to go through a whole life shift, or is going to want to. But so if you're listening to this right now and you're in phase 2, just know that it takes destabilization to walk a new path. The old needs to be shifted. And if you think about the metaphor of a butterfly, like a caterpillar is cool. The caterpillar is the mascot of the stage of ignorance. It's a cool mascot. Butterfly is also cool, but in order to go and get wings and be able to fly, to feel true freedom, the butterfly has to melt its whole body in a cocoon, like wrap itself up in a cocoon and then disintegrate itself, and then be recreated into a whole new being. And that metaphor is kind of going to be what your life looks like. You're going to be thrown in a washing machine, because to shut down one way of being and open up to a new way of being means that a lot of change has to occur. And change isn't a teleportation phenomenon. Change is a transitional phenomenon. It takes time for things to change. One change. Usually people want to uproot and upend most of their life when they start to see life through more love. Lots of things desire to be changed. And so one at a time, patience is a really important quality of this transition that is supportive. Patience. There's so much time that we have here. And when you realize that the essence, the absolute juiciest, tastiest fruit of this second phase is presence, you realize that where you are is perfect, and you can extract just as much fulfillment by you being in that job that doesn't feel aligned anymore than what you'll be able to if you have some full impact driven business and an eco-sustainable property that you're living off in some beautiful naturist location. Sure, that's going to help support a life of awareness, but you can still extract fulfillment in that moment. We have Nelson Mandela found freedom in jail, in prison. That's wild. Ram Dass said that his stroke that caused him to be wheelchair bound and lose his ability to speak, which was his whole purpose, was a divine intervention and an absolute gift to his life, helped wake him up even more. And so some of what we see is like challenges and breakdowns and feeling like the things that we want aren't happening in this second phase. Just know that the universe is at work. The universe loves you so much, and the universe is waking you up. And a lot of the times, in order to wake up, the things that are the most liberating from us mean that we have to let go of the things that we're attached to most. That doesn't mean that you're not able to live an integrated lifestyle with material success and purpose, and you got to go into a cave and get rid of every single material possession. It just looks like the attachments that you held for what you believe that you need to be worthy of love in the past, they are no longer going to become attached. There's going to have to be a letting go and a trust. And in that trust, that letting go, in this second phase of life, is going to become, is going to have there's going to be a new gift of presence that awakens. And there's going to be a new feeling of acceptance where you're able to see the divinity and the perfection of your life in the second phase of your journey. And it is going to be so beautiful when you can accept it and extract the fullness from it. So beautiful. Your life's not going to be perfect, but you're going to be able to see the perfection in it, right? You're not going to have everything that you want and attach to, but you're going to be able to pull the beauty of it. This is why people that travel to do charity work in Africa often come back. And I had a friend that did recently, a client actually, and said that it was just so crazy to see how much innate presence and happiness and joy was existing in these kids in Africa that have so little. Yet there's so much discontentment, and there's so much suffering, and there's so many mental health conditions, so much pain and suffering for people in the Western world that have so much. How is that? How are we having suicide rates rise so much? How is mental health at an all-time low in the Western world when we have more than we've ever had? Why? Why is that the case? Why? The reason is because we are becoming more and more separate, more and more disconnected. And so we're fast tracking to that point of that intolerable pain of separation. That's that opportunity to awaken and embrace a new way of being. There's just so much that needs to be surrendered and let go in order to embrace a new way of being. It's very difficult, very difficult. And I'm pretty happy to say that I've let go of a lot, and it's created a lot more fulfillment in my life, innate fulfillment, where I've got, technically I actually have more materially than I used to have because I'm so much better with my money and investments and whatnot. But I have less cash flow to spend. My lifestyle has cost so much less. I reckon I used to probably spend, oh gosh, if I had to guess, I'd say like $250,000 a year on my personal lifestyle. Yeah, at least 250 to 300,000, I'd say. Whereas now my personal lifestyle probably costs like 60 grand, maybe. And I'm so much fuller. I need so much less to feel awesome. I still make a lot more than that, which is probably why I do better financially now than I did in the past, because I spend so little and I don't need as much. So it's easy for me to save money and keep money and invest money. But I can tell you for a fact that with less, I feel more full on this second stage, because that whole first phase of ignorance, it is materially dominant. That's what we value. We value outcomes, material, the most manifest forms. Whereas in the second phase, we're prioritizing our experience, becomes the dominant priority, becomes the thing that we value most, is the experience of our life, not the results. We like in second phase, technically, we would prefer a worse result if we were to feel better, to feel more fulfilled, to extract more presence, to have a more beautiful, magical moment. Whereas in first phase, we don't care about the experience. So we're not even in the consciousness to be able to understand that. So this second phase, the universe is going to be very like so intelligently and complex, with so much complexity, so customly, precisely creating situations for you and your wife, like crazy complexly manifested situations for you to see love more. That's it. And that isn't going to fit the same storyline that your ego formed 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 3 years ago or 2 months ago if you're in a recent awakening. The universe isn't going to support that anymore. The universe is going to support something that is so much more of a blessing. Yeah. So much more of a blessing. The universe is going to support you to wake up. That doesn't mean you can't have material success. If you look at someone like Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who founded Transcendental Meditation, he died with a net worth of $6 billion through massive property investments that he made with the funding that was all owned by TM, the TM organization, I'm fairly certain. He didn't live lavish. He didn't have Lamborghinis. He didn't care about any of that stuff. He just wanted to have a cool experience, meditate, teach people. He wasn't even attached to that. He just wanted to have it. He just lived with so much joy, and we was just happy with that. And $6 billion. He didn't care. He didn't need $6 billion. Pretty sure Eckhart Tolle has like a net worth of like $70 million. Telling you he doesn't need much to feel fulfilled. He just wants to have a tea and be able to sit outside in a garden and just enjoy doing nothing. One of his favorite things to do is nothing, because he extracts everything from that. He doesn't need much, right? So, but it doesn't mean that he can't have it. And I love Matthew McConaughey's quote from his book, Green Light. And that is Green Lights, I'm pretty sure it's called. And that is, you can have anything you want as long as you don't need it. You can have anything you want as long as you don't need it. If you need it, if you're attached to it, well, the universe is going to have something to say about that. The universe is going to want to give you a gift that's more than you. Because if you desperately want that man and the universe is like, cool, here's your dream man, and you just get it, but you felt less than without it, you haven't actually alchemized that conditional love that you hold for yourself. It hasn't been addressed because you got your dream partner. Maybe the universe will give it to you. Maybe. And you're still going to feel that exact same feeling that you felt before that person came along, because they're not going to change your inner experience. Your inner experience will remain exactly the same. Because you have this complex coding and psychological patterning that's so put throughout your body on an emotional level and energetic level, and physically as well, with the ailments and the allergies and the afflictions of your physical body. All the conditions that you have are going to be exactly the same. This person's not going to change any of that. It's going to be in your life, and they'll probably cause more pain. Yeah, okay, cool. Here's an amazing partner, the one that you said you want, really good looking, really successful, wants to be in a long-term relationship with you. And then there you go. And now you have everything you want. You still feel crap. In fact, you feel worse, because now you're like, what? I have everything, but I still feel bad. And that contrast causes more suffering. The universe wants to give you more than that. The universe wants to wake you up. The universe wants you to learn to live in unconditional love. The universe wants you to feel whole. And the universe is completely supportive of the whole journey, the ignorance and the awareness, the forgetting and the remembering, because it's all part of it. But that stage, once you enter phase 2, is you're going to be drip-fed opportunities. The universe will treat you differently. The universe is going to give you VIP treatment. You're very important now. So you're going to be given first dibs on challenge, first dibs on having your attachments withheld. The universe is going to give you very special care, not just give you what you want, not just give you short-term gratification. The universe is going to start to challenge you to wake up. And I just hope that this podcast has supported you to become aware of the nuance between the two directions. This is just my opinion. This is my experience. And even though the part of you, if I said to you, hey, that business that you really want to become successful in, you can't have it actually. Sorry. No, you can't have it. You'd feel shocking probably. But the part of you that would feel really like disappointed in that is the part of you that needs it to feel good. Yeah. And if that part of you that needs it to feel good becomes less dominant, and the part of you that doesn't need it to feel good actually just feels really whole, and you feel this beautiful state of presence and groundedness and connection and joy and curiosity with life and playfulness with life and just feeling really centered for no good reason. And that part becomes more dominant. Your life is going to be a more fulfilling experience. The experience of life will actually become richer through not getting the thing that you wanted. So if I said to you, you can either have the thing you want or you can have a better experience of life, what would you choose? Depends which consciousness you're in. If you're in your ego consciousness, head consciousness, survival consciousness, fear consciousness, ignorance consciousness, forgetting phase, if you're in that consciousness, you'd say, well, I'm going to have the thing that I want. I need it. It's not true. But from that perspective, it believes it to be true. So you're going to want it. Whereas if you're in this other consciousness, it's going to be like, please, I would love to spend more time in presence. I would love to feel whole for who I am. The cool thing is that you can have, and this is my honest belief, you deserve your truest desires. So when you have these goals, I'll say that again, you deserve your truest desires. True desires. So when you have a goal to call in a partner, on that level of your consciousness that's awake and aware and love-based and fulfillment-driven, that aspect of you desires to see someone on a soul level in a relationship, desires to meet someone who loves them unconditionally. That aspect of your consciousness wants to call someone in to connect deeply. That aspect wants to call someone in who can reflect the challenges that you need, the misperceptions that you have, the judgments that you hold, the attachments that you hold, and wants to call someone in that actually mirrors back to you the things that you don't want, but you need. The ways that you judge. So you're going to meet a partner that has certain things that you don't like because you haven't learned to love those aspects of yourself yet. And so you're walking around at the moment with less unconditional love in your eyes, in your heart. You meet someone that's exactly the perfect combination of everything you exactly want. You ain't going to have the opportunity to alchemize those judgments. So, you can have what your true desires, but you wanting to meet the perfect person, it's not a true desire. To meet the most aligned person is. And you'll be gifted that. You deserve your truest desires. You just don't deserve your head's attachments. That's all. So from a business perspective, like what are the aspects of business that give you the most enriching experience? Is it growth? Because you deserve that. Is there an aspect of business that you love to do? Because you deserve that. For me, I love to speak. I'm doing it right now. It doesn't matter how much success I have. I'm doing it. I'm doing what I love. I'm present, allowing my voice to be of service. And that's what gives me a lot of fulfillment. I really enjoy this experience and I'm getting to do it right now. And it's not dependent upon how successful I am or how much money I have. I just got to do it. I deserve that. I deserve to do what I love right now and use my voice to be of service. Right? What do you love about business? What do you love about business? Because you deserve that. You do deserve that because it's going to give you a fulfilling experience. But for you to hit $1 million desperately in the next 6 months or you're not enough, do you deserve that experience of feeling less than until you hit some external goal? I think you deserve more than that. I think you deserve more than that. That doesn't mean it's impossible for that to happen. But if you're in phase 2 and that's a serious big attachment that you have, the universe will probably want more for you than that. Will probably seek to gift you a opportunity to liberate through that. Yeah. And you deserve that. You do deserve that. So you deserve your true desires. You do. You do. You don't deserve your head attachments. You deserve more than that. You deserve more than your head's attachments. You deserve more than fear consciousness. You deserve love. You deserve to feel full. You do. And you will get your physical, real world needs met. You'll probably accomplish a lot materially the moment that you don't need it anymore. Just watch it evolve. Watch it come. The moment you don't need it, that's nice. That's nice. So phase 2 is different to phase 1. Awareness is very different to ignorance. And your purpose on this life is to get to experience all of it, extract fulfillment from all of it, and continue to wake up, which means you're going to continuously be challenged externally with fears that stand in the way of you and your path of purpose and the creative endeavors that you have. You're going to continually be challenged with that because the universe wants you to grow. You're also going to be continuously challenged to do the alchemy work, to dissolve judgments, attachments, to be able to dissolve emotional hardship and emotional pain that's stored in your body. The universe will give you that opportunity to do that alchemy work as well, because the universe wants experience and evolution internally and externally. And all of that's going to lead you back to love. And we are just together on this journey, walking each other home. What a beautiful gift. So that's the end of this episode. It's food for thought. This is my opinion. I would love to hear your perspective on if anything resonated with you from this episode. Please shoot me an email, ryan@ryanmagic.com. Feel free to ask a question. Same thing with Instagram @TheRyanMagic. Please reach out. And if you want to do more work with me, or you feel called to evolve on your own journey with my support, I would love to help you further. Would love to. You can just go to ryanmagic.com and check out what I have going on there. So much love. Thank you for joining. You make my purpose and greatest passions possible. So thank you so much for that. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.